Hi guys, I'm live. Tomorrow's election day. I had thought about saying a comment politically about something about politics in America about the election, and but I wasn't going to force anything. I don't do that. I wait till it comes to me, and then it just tells me something. Tells me the spirit or whatever, my gut or the universe or whatever tells me to say a thing, and then that's when I say it or what I say. And it came to me, but it might not be what I was expecting either. But I have my little thought for the day about election and all that. So here goes. Rather than tout the horn of one candidate or the other, left or right, because that's I think a lot of people have their mind made up in that department, in that direction. Plus, I'm only going to please half the people and displease the other half. Rather than do that, I just want to discuss a political idea that I have about what's going on in America in the 21st century. Just from my point of view and just from a general political point of view, it's not saying one candidate or the other. But rather than put the candidates against each other, which seems a lot like flipping a coin and trying to decide whether heads or tails is right, why not make it the politicians and one group and the people in the other, and discuss that dilemma or dynamic, rather than one politician versus the other, which might be like dividing and conquering, and the politicians might do the same to us, thinking of us as one, many groups, and then whatever. But here's my thought. First of all, let me do the prelude. I think movies, especially from the 80s and 90s, but whatever era you're watching, have good messages in them that sometimes apply to life outside of the context or scene of the movie itself. And one such thing, I think, is in the movie Die Hard, the first one, which has my favorite actor of all time, Alan Rickman. And anyway, so they're on TV, and I mean, they're actually showing the news on TV in Die Hard, and the girl's name is Gail Wallen. I don't remember the dude's name. I'd have to think really hard. Harvey something. I'm Harvey Wallace. No, Gail Wallen. That wouldn't be Harvey. Anyway, I don't remember. But anyway, they're talking about hostage situations, and they're talking about the Helsinki syndrome. And funnily, someone says Helsinki. I think it's a Harvey guy says Helsinki, Sweden, and someone corrects him and says Finland. So it's Helsinki, Finland. I don't know the exact historical reference to why this particular syndrome I'm going to talk about is called the Helsinki syndrome, but I do know it's Finland, not Sweden. Stockholm is Sweden, but the syndrome is Helsinki syndrome. It's Helsinki, Finland. And what they're talking about in that is that when you're taking when you've been taken hostage by someone or somebody's, you tend to form a bond with them because your survival is in their hands, and that creates almost a bond of trust that may even extend after the hostage situation is over, and even the perpetrators are in jail, and you still feel connected to them and still write them in jail, like how's it going or whatever, And that's I said that background because I think, like it or not, or popular or not, I think that about 95% of Americans are victims of Helsinki syndrome when it comes to our government, especially concerning the Bush coup of 9/11. Now, I guess there's always going to be a group that think that was just as Bush said, just as the TV said, or just as the government said. But anyone that, at least in my view, if anyone that does their homework and has a brain to do homework can realize, if they haven't already, that the whole 9/11 thing was engineered. They blew those buildings up. But they were smart about it, because rather than rebel against the government that did that to us, so many people instead just get closer to the government, and that's what their plan was. We rely on the government, not knowing the government did that. And so I think the whole society as a whole in general is a victim of the Helsinki syndrome when it comes to politicians, from Bush and his coup and on down. The only way that that's not true is if you can prove that we're not stunned by that, and most people won't admit that. They won't admit, I just don't care about 9/11. So that's one loophole that I don't think we have. And the other loophole is if we can prove that 9/11 was legit. That's also not a good loophole because you can prove it's not legit just by doing some homework and having a brain to do it. So I believe that most of us, many individuals, as well as society as a whole, are walking around with Helsinki syndrome, thanks to Bush and his coup. And they blow up a bunch of buildings, blame it on somebody else, and then make us all go to them for protection against that somebody else that we think it is when it's them. So Bush and his people, whoever's with him, there was a whole PNAC, Project for a New American Century. The Patriot Act was drawn up in 1986. That's 15 years before 9/11 even happened. They just needed an excuse to put it into effect. And the Patriot Act itself represents scaredness, mistrust, fear, paranoia. That's all really belongs to putting that toward the government, but instead we put it toward the other guys or toward each other, but not the government where it actually belongs usually. I was going to say something. I was going to say something here. I had a thought about the. Well, anyway, like I was saying, yeah. So like I was saying, the Project for a New American Century, the PNAC, was they purposed. Oh, I know the other thing. Now I just remembered what I was going to say. I think really fast sometimes, and I jump a truck. But anyway, besides the actual physical evidence of proving that 9/11 was done by our own people, that they blew up those buildings. You can just do your homework on that. But I think it's also suspect that they chose to do it on the date 9/11 because that's a date that would only mean something to an American. The other guys from the other country wouldn't have cared or known or related to our 9/11 as our emergency call, and they wouldn't have. That was a coup. That was a little tidbit for us because no. Those people don't know, won't relate to, or won't purposely put that attack on the date of our emergency call. That's either wild coincidence or they just thought, wow, let's make it 9/11. That way it'll sound really scary, like an emergency call. Well, the other guys wouldn't know to do that or wouldn't care about it, wouldn't relate to that 9/11 symbol or call. They just wouldn't do that. And conveniently, having it on the first year of the new century, 2001. The new century didn't start in 2000. That was the last year of the 20th century. The new century doesn't start till 2001. So in perfect alignment with the Project for a New American Century, they not only did it on the first year of the new American century, 21st century, but they did it on 9/11, which was like an inside joke for our emergency call system that those guys wouldn't even have cared about, or it was engineered and doctored from the start. So what I say, at least for me, they say be the change you want to be the change you want to be the change you want to see in the world. I'm starting with myself, and I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to live in paranoia. I don't want to live in whatever that is. Like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid of this and that. It starts with, I think, knowing the truth, and that was basically the gist of what I'm saying. And all that, and then just living that day by day yourself. Hope maybe it rubs off on others, and maybe we can get over that and recover from it. At least be recovering Helsinki syndrome survivors. Love you guys. Peace, welcome.